off, Amy. We should be good.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the October 11th Oshkosh Advisory Park meeting. Called a roll call, please, Stacy.
Right, Bartelt. Davis.
Aye, here.
Dearth.
Here.
Royal.
Here.
Hudak. Martin.
Here.
Metz. Millette. And Palmieri.
Here.
All right. A review of the September 13 minutes. Any comments, questions, concerns, changes? I make a motion to approve the September 13 minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, so we get to go through roll call for that, with it being virtual still. So Bartelt, Davis,
Aye.
Dearth,
Aye.
Royal,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye. Aye.
Millette,
Aye. Good job.
Palmieri.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
And now, any citizen statements? I don't think there's anyone on. Ray, you have anything?
I do not see any citizens.
Any additional? All right, so we're going to go to some old business that we've been working on for a while. Ray, do you want to just kind of give us a quick recap, and then we can turn it over to?
Sure. The first item under old business is consider and recommend approval of a Gulf War Memorial Monument at South Park War Memorial area. And Mr. Cannon from the local veterans group is joining us here. So welcome, Mr. Cannon. And what I'll do for the public at home is I'll pull it up on my screen, a rendering of what the vets would like to place at the War Memorial. And Mr. Cannon, I know you couldn't attend the last meeting because of the commitment. And prior to that, the board did have some questions that they wanted you to answer or address. So I'm sure they'll have a couple questions for you. So let me just pull up the rendering real quickly.
Okay, I got some things to say first.
Hold on, Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
If you can just give me a chance to share the rendering real quick with the public, and then I'll turn it over to you, or you can address it. Can everybody see that now? Okay.
Now we can, yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. The War on Terror, also known as the Global War on Terrorism and the U.S. War on Terror, is a term that refers to an ongoing international military campaign launched by the United States government following the September 11th attack. The targets of the campaigns are primarily extremist groups located throughout the Muslim world, with the most prominent group, the Al-Qaeda and Islamic States. They're various franchise groups. The naming of the campaign used a metaphor of the war to refer to the various of actions that do not constitute a specific war as traditionally defined. The United States President George W. Bush first used the term war on terrorism on September 16th of 2001, and the war on terror a few days later in a formal speech to Congress. And we also have something else. As much as the nation was just starting, the day of the morning of September 11th, 2001, 19 terrorists hijacked 4 East Coast flights, crashing 3 of the airplanes into the targets in New York and Washington, D.C., and the 4th slamming into the fields of Pennsylvania after passengers fought back. In the end, 2,977 people died, making it the deadliest attack on U.S. soil in history. The Al-Qaeda-led attack prompted George W. Bush to declare a global war on terror military campaign in which he called on the world leaders to join the U.S. in a response. Every nation and every region now has a decision to make, he said in a national address. Either you are with us or you are with a terrorist. The Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 437, our motto is the whole national VVA motto is never will one generation of veterans abandon another. And that's why we want to honor those that had passed away during the Gulf War up to the present. There's 3 of them in Oshkosh. Any questions?
I'll pull the rendering up again.
What was that?
I'm going to pull the rendering up again, just again, so the public can see, as well as if there's any questions by the board members.
Can you scroll through the other slides, Ray?
I don't.
Only the one slide for this item.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
This is Deb. Can you remind me of where this will go in the South Park area? You know, I know it goes, does it go behind the current, or where will it be placed?
No, we plan on having that monument in front of the other ones that's there. And it will be the same type of stones that the other monuments are. It'll be low enough so the other ones can be read. It's right before the walkway.
So basically, Deb, it's a, the flower bed area. It'll be installed in there itself.
Yeah, it's where the flowers are right now.
And Ray, just a question, is this coming in under the gifts and donations policy?
Yes,
We
this
are
would be,
no-
go
Our
ahead.
Veterans America Chapter 437 is donating this to the city.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, I would say it's really twofold. Part of the gift policy is for donations, but also talks about memorials. And I guess I see this fitting into that general, both of those areas, really, the donation as well as a memorial. So not as specific as a memorial to individual person, but persons as noted.
Thank you.
And this would be something, if the board does feel comfortable recommending it, it would need to go to the council for their approval as well.
I have a question, and I pardon my not so being good at current events and things like that. It just very simply, I've under the impression this may not be over. What would be the plan for future names to go on this if that would be the case? Like I like the idea of memorializing. Is there a way that we could add names or whatever else to continue honoring those that have served?
Well, right now we don't plan on having any more.
Well, I hope not.
But if there is, we can do something else. Like right now we are out of the Afghanistan stuff, so I don't believe there's going to be any more being called in from city of Oshkosh.
And Ray, do you have like a kind of an overview of the location? Deb had talked about that a little bit earlier, but do we have like a kind of a locator map to just kind of see?
Bill, did we include that with the original meeting? Do you recall?
No, we did not.
I can
Sorry,
put up a
Mayor,
picture.
I do not have a rendering of that.
Oh, could you maybe pull it up on Google Maps, like Street View?
If I was proficient at Google Maps, I probably could.
Or
We did
just,
not have a picture in the original one, unfortunately.
did?
We did not.
I think that was one of the questions previously too.
I went there and took a picture a couple, 3 months ago, of that, because I wanted to understand what it looked like, because I've been there, but there.
There's
There
the
you go.
monument, and it would be right in this area, right in front.
So that shows
Thank
the
you.
flower bed without flowers right now, correct?
Pardon?
That shows the flower bed without flowers right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Shall we call the vote?
I would say if there's no other questions, I know, at the last meeting, there were questions about, as Tony insinuated, is it actually over? And if there were added names or needed to be added names, I think those were some of the questions. So
Yeah.
if the board would be comfortable with Mr. Cannon's answers and responses, then
So
somebody would.
we originally had war on terrorism, but we could also put in exchange war on terror or U.S. war on terror is whatever you would prefer.
Are those the options that we have? I don't know. Like, is that based? Is there any other terminology that is being used that we should be aware of?
No, that is it. It's either the war on terror, global war on terrorism, or U.S. war on terror.
And why is the Gulf War included there as well?
Because the last war we had was the Vietnam War, and we wanted to include any Gulf War veterans up to the present.
Okay.
Because you got the World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, but then it started again with the Gulf War, and we didn't want them to be out of it.
Gotcha.
Anybody?
The question is, what terminology do you want as far for the Gulf War, and then below that, war on terror, global war on terrorism, or U.S. war on terror? It's up to you.
I guess my opinion is I would rely on your group of veterans to recommend, would be my opinion. I don't know if the board has other thoughts, but and what you had proposed is what we had sent out as what would be placed out there. So
Yeah, what I could do at our next meeting on November 1st, bring it up before the membership and see what wording they would like to have on it.
I agree with
So-
Ray in that you would be the expert for this, in my opinion, and I would defer to your group for the right terminology there.
How was that again?
I just defer to you and your group. I think you all would be the experts, so I would appreciate and respect y'all's decision with that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, with that, then we'll need to wait until November to vote, if we're gonna vote on the wording, right?
Right.
did you take this to your group, Mr. Cannon? Did you share this with them, and did they take a look at the verbiage?
Yes, we did this quite a few months ago.
And is this what your group decided to present to us?
Yes.
Okay. So I feel if the board doesn't feel in changing what their group is recommending, I think it's appropriate to take action tonight, if you're comfortable with that.
I'll just say, in terms of, because this is located in a park, it kind of goes back to other memorials, and maybe, deferring to either the group expertise or council. I feel like our role here is more about the physicality and placement and that rather than content.
Okay.
My only question is, Ray, what does staff think of this? I mean, we see pictures and all that other stuff. Staff like the way it looks? Is staff kind of pleased with
I'm
the
having a hard
monument
time
and-
understanding you. My hearing is bad.
Bill, can you step up to the computer? I think this would be more of a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh.
That doesn't work.
I guess my question is, what is staff's thought on this? I mean, does it, we see pictures and we saw a picture held up to the screen. Does it, I mean, what we have and what's planned, does it, does staff think it'll look good and fit in well and be a good part of that monument?
Yeah, I've looked at the site with Mr. Cannon and Mr. Mauer and conferred with Reinke Monument, who is producing the monument, and we feel that it's a good fit. It'll match with what's existing there currently. There's appropriate space available within that flower bed, and we can also continue to work flowers around that area as we always have. So I think it's a good setting for it. It keeps all the monuments confined into a general area, and I know it is a very popular spot for visitors to come and look at during Memorial Day and some of the other military holidays.
Great, that's all I needed. Thanks, Bill. Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Lori, was that you that seconded? Okay, thank you. All right. And just to be clear, we're approving it based on the language that is on the,
As presented, correct.
okay, as presented. Okay. Thank you. So I will do roll call then. Davis,
Aye.
Dearth,
Aye.
Royal,
Aye.
Martin,
Hi.
Millette,
Aye.
and Palmieri.
Hi.
All right, motion passed 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon.
And thank you.
We'll let you exit the office now.
Exit the building.
All right, so we'll move on to some new business from Ann Schaefer, our Marketing and Fund Development Coordinator.
You want to read the title of it, Amy, while I give Ann the screen? That would help me by a minute here.
Yes, it's the presentation of the Parks Department 2020 Impact Report that Ann will be sharing with us.
And I'm passing you the privilege.
Yeah. If you guys don't mind, just give me a second here.
So for those of you who haven't met Ann, because we don't require her to attend all the meetings, Ann is our Marketing and Fund Development Coordinator for our department. And so she is, she's actually works for the parks as well as the senior center, and she works through the planning division as a major conduit with the neighborhood association. So she's spread out into various departments throughout the city, and Ann works on the impact report for us. And so I'll let her walk through that briefly and talk a little bit about 2020.
So hopefully everybody can see it on their screen. And I know everyone is super anxious to relive 2020. So obviously it was the year of COVID. One of the themes I think you'll see throughout the impact report is the Parks Department really rose to the occasion and adapted and made changes that allowed our park patrons and the community to still enjoy services even though we were going through the changing world with COVID-19. I think one of the biggest highlights is what the department did at Menominee Park Zoo. We kept it open. We monitored visitors, and we allowed only 50 people at a time. But we ended up seeing tens of thousands of visitors come through. Some programs were canceled, some went virtual, and some were changed. And it was all to protect public health. The parks actually became a huge haven for people as we were issued the stay-at-home order. We ended up keeping playground equipment quarantined, if you will, but the parks remained open, and there were quite a few people that ended up finding solace in the open spaces and connecting with nature. That really has a huge effect on people's quality of life, which is all about what the park's mission is. Our department, I'm sure most of you have met everybody. Ray, Chad, Bill, Jenny. Jean Wollerman is the Senior Services Manager, Kathy Snell, Special Events, myself as Marketing and Fund Development Coordinator, and Stacy as the Admin Assistant. And of course, Ray Maurer. There's 400 acres, over 400 acres of park space in Oshkosh, and 14 rentable shelters and 6 boat launch areas within the city limit. Excuse me. One of the big highlights was Menominee Park Zoo. They actually celebrated their 75th anniversary. New animals arrived: an albino raccoon, foxes, badger, and wolves. And we just shared how we made sure that the zoo remained open. We saw over 62,000 visitors June through August. And the educational coordinator still hosted small daily sessions. Jenny did an amazing job of morphing Zulaween Boo and Touch-a-Truck, 2 of our signature events, into an event that people felt safe at. So people stayed in their car, and they trick-or-treated to community organizations that would bring candy up to the car. It was a huge success, and we pulled it off so that people felt safe. One really exciting project that you've heard a lot about, Lakeshore Park, started to make some serious progress in 2018 and through 2020. Right now, Ray, maybe you can give a little update on the status right now. So the Four Seasons building, which is pictured here, is about to begin construction. And maybe, Ray, you could give a little update there.
Yep, you got too far ahead on the construction. I wish it was beginning construction, but
Okay.
it's actually out for bids right now. So that I believe the bids are due the first part of November, and we're hoping that the delay helped with keeping or getting maybe the material costs down somewhat from what they were this year. And depending how the bids come in, we're looking to bring a recommendation to the council, I believe at their second meeting in November, to possibly award a bid for a construction firm. And what else, Ann? The trail in Rainbow was completed spring of 2020, so that's been heavily used.
Right. We are still actively fundraising and looking for grants. It's definitely been an uphill battle. COVID really changed the focus of a lot of funders to be all about basic needs. So that activity continues. There are quite a few projects finished. The community playground in Menominee Park, Bowen Street, the dock was refurbished. Menominee Park, we installed outdoor exercise stations. Lakeshore Parks Riverwalk was completed, and the solar powered electronic pay stations went up in Rainbow Memorial Park. And then what other parks are they located in?
They're in
At
all
all
of
the
them right
boat
now.
launches now.
Okay. And the good news is you guys are seeing more revenues with those stations being up and so easy to use. Landscape operations, Mr. Bill Sturm. So he finished a DNR grant, 200 terrace trees in Sawyer Payne, Congress Field Neighborhood Associations. The funds came from the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation, Taking Root program, and Wisconsin DNR. The wetlands at the South Park lagoons were completed. The new community playground in Menominee Park was landscaped. Make sure you go out there. It looks fantastic. We planted 363 terrace trees. Bill pruned 1,800 plus trees and removed 122 trees affected by emerald ash borer and 250 stumps. Busy division. We're not really going to share a lot of info about the Oshkosh Senior Center. They have their own advisory board. Special events obviously really changed. We went from, well, we only hosted 32 special events. That was down 78%. So COVID obviously had a huge effect on these things. The bright side was there were quite a few organizations that learned how to hold these events safely. The Jack and Jill Lumberjack Run was one of them. They practiced social distancing. They put into place a ton of COVID protocols, and they had a successful event. So making those changes actually worked. What was I doing in 2021? The social media pages on Facebook grew 12%. Raising funds was challenging, but we reached our goals. The most exciting for me was Bader Philanthropies granted us $152,000 for Connect Through Tech, and we share some of that funds with the Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods. The Friends of the Oshkosh Senior Center provide $65,000 annually to the center. And without being able to hold Food Truck Fridays, there was a huge concern that they would meet their donation goals. So we really dug in and did some creative things, such as holding a Friends Day of Giving. That is all I've got. Are there any questions?
I'd like to remind the board as well as the public that this information is out on the city website. go to the Parks Department, you'll find our 2020 impact statement as well as the last 3 years, I believe, prior to that. So thank you, Ann. And if there's any questions, Ann can help with some of those as well.
Yes, I do. I would like to just give a little bit of feedback about the impact report. I know that, you know, a lot of organizations have kind of converted from the quote unquote annual report, which can be quite lengthy and full of verbiage, to this more streamlined, which I appreciate, a brief type of document. If I could just give a couple of points of feedback and then some questions. So when we talk about the tens of thousands that attended the zoo, do we have more specific numbers with use of that counter?
The number that was put in there was 62,000 over those 3 months, and that is what we get from the counter. So
those, okay, that's referencing the 62,000 visitors. Okay.
correct.
And then,
And later in the Jenny's report, she'll be able to update you on this year's number as well.
sure. So I am wondering, because this is kind of like our bragging piece, if we might not take, for example, that 62,000 number and like make it big in, you know, in contrast to the other small print. And I'm going to reference that in a couple other places too. There's also a place where the various parks, and then we enumerate other things. I would like to see us like enumerate how many total parks that we have. And let's see here. I guess the other thing is, do we happen to know how many of those small groups Jenny worked with at the zoo? And then again, highlighting that number 500 and the number of cars that attended the Zulaween Boo, or the 70 acres of Lakeshore Park, just making that like literally bigger to kind of pronounce it a little more. Again, I kind of view this as our kind of our end of year brag, right? And then another question is, how many miles of trails do we now have complete? Or, you know, if you were to compare it before the completion of like the river walk, are we, do we have an inventory that we can show, okay, by this completion, we're now at X where we were at, you know, Y. Yeah,
Yeah,
just, yeah, otherwise yes.
I was just going to say that, and we do have a trails map that is also on the city website that lays out trails throughout the various parks and tells you the distance on those. So we do have the trail information, and you've been publishing that a little bit more. Does that include the river walk as well, or is that simply the park trails? I'm not sure.
So actually Stacy was really instrumental in putting those together, and the river walk is kind of an ongoing, so we don't have probably the real time mileage, etc. And they're going to complete that piece by Rainbow Memorial very soon too. So yeah, the data could be used differently for sure.
So to answer your question, Mayor, we have the map, we have it documented as far as number of miles. And then when sections are completed, we probably don't do it annually. I know Stacy will keep up on that, but we do track that as part of some of our KPIs within our department. And as Ann said, and the river walk is something that we do as well. We keep an eye on it along with the planning staff as far as when segments are added, how many linear footage of additional river walk was added.
Yeah, and again, these are just some suggestions to, you know, kind of emphasize, you know, in spite of 2020, you know, this phenomenal, I think, accomplishment. So I assume that you're using this as a funder appeal. So that's just my feedback on, you know, that quantification and then highlighting it, making it big. So
I
there's
like what you're,
others.
yeah, I like what you're saying. We can absolutely add like a summary with the highlight on it that will really make those standout accomplishments. And then Ray, we've also purchased and trained a lot on Canva this year. So we have a lot more flexibility. So keep in mind that due to costs, etc., we produce this in-house. It's not an agency or anything like that. So we're excited about what Canva can do. And I love your idea of making it more of a bragging piece.
Deb?
I would just support that too, because it's just a pride matter, I think, for citizens to see, oh, we've got, you said earlier, how many acres of parkland, and we have this much trail, and this year we added this additional amount of trail. People, yes, they can go search it out, but it's nice to have it in, highlight those big pieces, because it's a big deal. You guys do a lot of work, but having it easy to see, I think more people will see it, and you'll get credit, as you should.
Sure. All good comments, and sure, Ann's making some notes here, so.
Yes, indeed.
All right, thank you, Ann. Amy, I think you're still here.
I'm still here. All right. We will move on to the presentation of the Oshkosh Street Tree and Urban Canopy Report that Bill Sturm has done. Bill, turn over to you.
Thank you, Amy.
I will, I'll pull your presentation up for the public to see while you're starting out, if that's okay. Unless you have it ready, I can share the screen with you.
Yeah, if you want to pull it up, that would be awesome.
Okay. So go ahead and start.
Okay. Back in 2012 and 2013, I worked with the Wisconsin DNR on producing a study of the benefits of the urban trees within the city. This was part of a Northeast Wisconsin project where a number of communities who had digital inventories shared them with the DNR. This is mainly Fox Cities, Green Bay metro area, and Oshkosh that did this work. What we did was we shared the digital inventory, and then they put it through a U.S. Forest Service program called iTree, which calculates the benefits of the urban trees that the communities currently manage. So from that, the iTree software is able to derive some monetary benefits for each of the areas, including stormwater runoff reduction, CO2 reduction, property value increase, air quality improvement, and energy savings. People say money doesn't grow on trees, but the idea in mind is that trees do provide monetary benefits to communities, and given that it is valuable to sustain an urban forestry program in the communities, because it does give you great dividends really in the long term. So the DNR survey represented that it provides almost a 300% return on investment. So the data is a bit dated now, since it was from calendar year 2012, and obviously some things have changed with addition of a lot of new trees since 2012 in the city of Oshkosh, and also some losses, primarily in the ash species that I think you're all aware of through emerald ash borer. So, there is probably a bit of a difference in the current value. So I just keep all that in mind. The other portion of the study too was to address the species diversity, and they didn't include percentages of all of the species that are represented here in our inventory, but they just kind of focused on some of the main ones that we had historically. At that time, we had about 24% Norway maple, which is currently a declining number because a lot of those Norway maples were probably in that 35-year age group, and we've been losing some of those due to girdling roots and other issues. The green ash species is obviously in the process of being dropped down. They had listed it at 9% at the time, which is very low, fortunately for most communities, because now with the loss of those ash from emerald ash borer, we're actually in a fairly good situation, even though it seems pretty dire currently, given the fact that we have to remove quite a few of them right now. But also, we've been adding a lot of different species in most of our plantings. So most of the DNR grants that Anna just discussed earlier focus on a variety of different species. So we're trying new things to try to diversify our plant palette so that we aren't overstocking any one particular species, which puts us in jeopardy of other potential insect or disease problems that may be coming down the pike. I think a lot of you have probably heard me talk about Dutch elm disease back in 50s and 60s. Most communities were substantially elm, and now there's very few elm existing in most of the communities in the United States. So we kind of learned some lessons from Dutch elm disease. We're learning some hard lessons from emerald ash borer. So the trend now is to try to diversify the species as much as possible so that we don't really have continuous rows of one species where, if we do lose them, it's a pretty poor aesthetic effect that remains. I think a lot of people kind of forget about all the benefits the trees provide. Most people understand the aesthetic value of them in communities, but I think it is important to recognize things about what they do to improve air quality and reduction of carbon dioxide. Trees are actually a carbon sink, so they'll lock up the carbon so that at that time that we did the study, it listed that our indirect cost savings were over $13,000 because it could store 4,732 tons of atmospheric CO2 for a total savings of over $70,000. So I think it's real important to recognize that the trees do provide a lot of additional values for us. The other part of the study was a little more complicated to work with. It's the urban tree canopy analysis. And the way this was done was, again, it incorporated the data that we have in our urban tree inventory, which essentially represents the city-owned portion of the urban forest. But it also used Google Maps to analyze the total canopy coverage of the city. So that also would include a lot of trees, the trees on private property, which we don't have cataloged since they aren't really under our management. But it gives you an idea of what an aerial view of the community really is representative of. And there's also, of course, a lot of value in that as well. Stormwater mitigation and carbon sequestration, a lot of those other things that I had mentioned previously in the other report. Our canopy coverage here in Oshkosh, the number is somewhat low by comparison to some other communities. But I need to remind people that in 2001, with the straight line wind event that we had, we lost over 8,000 public trees, and we don't even really have a record of what was lost on private property. But as many of you may remember, it was a pretty devastating event to the city of Oshkosh. So don't be completely alarmed at the 18%. Some of the communities are slightly higher than that with canopy coverage, but we had significant losses. But consequently, we've been, making a very good effort to try to replace trees on public property. And so, ultimately, as those trees become larger, the canopies increase, and it also will increase our canopy coverage overall. There's a lot of areas that we can't really plant on because they're streets or structures, some impervious surfaces that we really, first of all, don't have control of, or would not be possible to plant trees on: riverways, waterways, that sort of thing. But I think the number that would be approachable would be some of the area that is considered grass and shrubs in the pie diagram. They had asked for some idea of what kind of urban tree canopy goal we might like to see. I think we could certainly get above where we're currently at now, but then we'd also have to identify areas that are currently, lawns or other like green areas to try to add trees to increase the urban tree canopy. But I think, as many of you are aware of, there's certain green space areas that we can't plant trees on, which would include like athletic fields, some of those areas that have other uses. So I think the important thing is that we try to consistently improve upon the tree canopy coverage. It'll help us recover from insect issues like emerald ash borer better. I think by diversifying our inventory, that certainly helps the longevity of some of those plantings, and try to make some headway in working on parking lot redesigns to increase the presence of trees in some of those zones, and in residential development, try to encourage more tree planting on private property as well. It's a little hard to kind of, for us as a municipality, to mandating people plant trees on their own property, but I think there's probably possibilities of incentivizing the public to try to do more in that regard. We've actually, through Taking a Root program, attempted to do that too by offering trees for private property through some of the programs that we've done a number of years ago. So I guess I'll kind of turn it over to the board if they've got some questions about this study. I think at some point I would like to update the numbers a bit so that we get a more current representation of where we're at with some of these statistics. But I think it's likely going to be pretty similar results, although the species composition has been changing quite a bit. And also, I think, through a lot of the plantings that we've done on public property, I believe that we're making moves in the right direction to try to improve urban tree canopy coverage within the community, and also try to mitigate some of the adverse effects of environmental changes and mitigation of stormwater and that sort of thing as well through the projects.
If I may, I see that Brad Spanbauer has joined us for this particular piece, and he had messaged and asked if he would be able to speak in relation or ask questions on this. I don't know, Chair, whether or not you want to indulge the caller.
Yes. As usual, citizen statements are a few minutes, 5 minutes. So go ahead.
The only thing I would ask, Brad, before you speak, if you could state your name. Well, obviously your name we have, but if you could state your address, please, so that I can have that.
Absolutely. Can folks hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Brad Spanbar. My address is 429A Lindy Street in Oshkosh.
Thank you.
54901 is the zip. Yeah, this is a really interesting report. I mean, I guess my main sort of question or comment would be, yeah, what is the plan to update this? And if there's some way to involve the university. So I work for the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh as the campus sustainability director. And we have also undertaken a project to map all of our trees on campus. This was actually something I started as a student in about 2009. And we mapped about 1,600 trees on the Oshkosh campus. And this is a cause that I'm very interested in. So if there's a way for a city and university collaboration, I think that would be a worthwhile venture.
Well, you took my question, Brad. I was going to ask Bill this. I got real excited when I saw this from Bill and asked that this be put on the agenda. So, maybe we could, discuss whether or not there might be an option for us to do an update. And as I understood it, Bill said that, this was a grant funded kind of one-time thing. And I was in a discussion with the regional DNR rep not too long ago and referred to this and asked if they thought they would be bringing this back, at that regional level for that. What did you call it, Bill? The iTree program?
Yeah, the iTree is the U.S. Forest Service software that was used to develop the project.
So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool, and it was very useful to me in responding to some citizen questions about, hey, what is the city doing about, carbon sequestration, and what is the city doing about, this and this, and here are some quantified numbers from 2013 that we can say, well, our trees are doing X, Y, and Z, but it's just a question of whether or not we're able to have the will and the ability to update. So I appreciate Mr. Spanbauer's offer to collaborate if we're interested. That's all I have.
I've been working with Mr. Spanbauer on the Tree Campus USA program since its inception. So one of the goals that we had discussed early on in getting UW Oshkosh on the Tree Campus USA registry is that I tend to look at urban forestry as a community-wide project. Obviously, the UW campus represents a fairly large landmass within our community. So we certainly want to include within our scope, many of the trees that exist currently there. They have fairly diverse species mix. They have everything mapped very well. They're working on interpretations to allow students and visitors to better understand the trees that are present there and their value. So I think we've had a very productive relationship with the UW Oshkosh throughout this project. What I'd like to see, and Mr. Spanbauer and I have talked about this in the past, is to try to bring university's inventory into a project that the DNR operates currently called the Wisconsin Community Tree Index, which is accessible by all of the public. And so they can actually zoom into the city of Oshkosh find the tree that's on their terrace in front of their home, or some of the trees in the parks, and look at the current data for those individual trees. And so by incorporating the UW's data into this system as well, I think that would also bring some value as well, so that people could really kind of hone in on trees they're familiar with, learn a little more about them. So I think I'm always open to collaboration with the university. I think it's been a great team of people that I've worked with over, I think, the Tree campus for 12 years now, maybe, or so. Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's been a lot of enthusiasm, and it also kind of pulls in a nice cooperative effort in looking at it as a community tree project, as opposed to municipal and university separation. So I think there's a lot of value to that for everyone.
And we're all connected. I guess my follow-up question would be maybe for Ray and the board, as we anticipate going into the more specific planning for phase 2 of Lakeshore, for example, would it be useful to consider having this kind of update in terms of, how many we've lost, how many we've planted, where we're at in comparison to 2013, in the potential consideration of how we view phase 2 of Lakeshore as one one possibility?
I think I agree with Bill that anything we can do to possibly update the information, and that's something that Bill can look into further with whether it's the DNR or other opportunities out there. It's we're not sure, and I don't think Bill has looked into what the cost would be to update the information, but definitely something. Not only I agree, having the information for Lakeshore, but I think, as Bill stated, community-wide, I just think it'd be good to have that data 7, 8 years, 9 years down the road. Something that, Bill, you can maybe check into, and we can report back in one of the next upcoming meetings as to what you're finding out, because obviously, getting the funding and getting the buy-in from the DNR is going to be beneficial and helpful. So.
Yeah, the initial project was a Northeast Wisconsin project. I'm a member of the Urban Forestry Work Group for Northeast Wisconsin. So this was sort of a regional idea, and I had a discussion with the DNR last week regarding this project, because I had kind of forgotten some of the steps that we had gone through to get this developed. She was going to put me in touch with their GIS coordinator, who deals specifically with the tree inventory for the state. And I've worked with them on some past projects. I think that probably fairly easily put together, another study. We don't even necessarily have to format into the form that we currently have here in front of us, but we could very easily come up with some of the data. The tricky part, as I mentioned earlier, was combining some of that tree inventory data with the aerial imagery to get that canopy coverage piece. But as far as the statistical representation of species and quantities of trees and things like that, we update our municipal inventory on an annual basis. So we're very up to date on most of that. I definitely see value in continuing to enter data in as we develop new park projects. Obviously, as we lose trees, we want to make sure we delete those from our inventory so we're not misrepresenting anything. But I think if we could develop a system where we can have kind of a more frequent update on some of this information, I think there's a lot of value in just helping people to understand that there is benefit to the forestry program in the community, even though a lot of people look at it from more of an aesthetic viewpoint. I think by quantifying it, it gives people some real good numbers to work with, and to see that yes, it does give us, as a estimated 300% value or added benefit to by incorporating trees into our landscape projects and streetscapes.
So I guess, Bill, if you can continue to have those conversations and keep us posted on, what kind of update we might be able to see, I think that'd be good.
Will do.
And I agree that, having the university involved and not only as a landowner, but potentially helping with pulling some of that information together or putting it together into a type of presentation that we might not be able to do on our own as well. So
the other value of the inventory too, if we have another catastrophic storm, hopefully not, but like we had in 2001, we've got good data on our losses. So, that allows us to pursue, FEMA grants and things like that too. There's been kind of an inventory in place for quite a while, but just to keep that current is important because it can help us mitigate the effects of any future storms that may occur, so that we have real good numbers on losses and values and that sort of thing that we use for some sort of to recoup some of those losses from major storm events like that.
And just a reminder for the board and the citizens, this information is on the parks website, the city's website. Go to the Parks Department and it's out there as well for people to read and view.
I'm just really glad that you remembered and brought this up, Bill. I was just so excited to see this because it at least it's this like easily digestible. Although I wish they would have put a date on the report because I didn't know until you said 2012, 2013. I didn't see any reference to a date that the analysis was done, but I don't know if it was carved out of a bigger document or something too.
Yeah, it was. I actually did follow up with DNR just to determine that because I knew it was around that time period, but years go by quickly. So, but they did verify that it was a 2011, 2012 project. So I think we submitted our inventory in 2011.
So you mentioned this was a Northeast Wisconsin regional effort. Is there a bigger report that shows that whole?
They produced similar reports for the Green Bay metro area and the Fox Valley metro area. In the UTC analysis, they kind of mentioned like Green Bay metro area includes a variety of different communities, as does Appleton, and they were mainly working with communities that had digital inventories. So many communities don't have inventories at all. So they basically had to work with the data that was available to try to get a picture of those regions. Oshkosh was a little different because they just were a little out of those areas. So they just basically focused on us as a community, but the other ones were depicted as regional. So each of those areas, each of those area foresters received reports for their respective communities as well.
But they didn't do like an aggregate. And the reason I'm asking is, I'm on the East Central Wisconsin Regional Plan Commission, and I'm the chair for the regional comprehensive plan that we're doing for 2045. And that's why I was asking, because it may be beneficial for East Central if that is to, pull in if they have an aggregate, or even the individual ones, I'm sure is better than nothing. I just was curious if they did pull us together as a region or not.
Yeah, I think there's value in that. I think by looking at it regionally, we can not only compare our community to others, but my preference would be to see this more on a statewide level, so that we could see other areas too, and it helps you identify areas that are in more need too, which is will help get grants for some of the communities that are deficient, and because we're not alone in this quest for, increasing canopy coverage. I think there's a lot of communities that haven't been as fortunate as Oshkosh and having people who have shown an interest and tried to get things done. So I think if kind of a wider scope of this project, I think that would certainly have a lot of value.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Good information.
Yes, thank you, Bill. All right, anything else in new business we need to cover before we move on? All right, well, then we're on to staff reports. Mr. Mauer, you kick us off?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen again. The first item I want to update you on is the Riverside Park Gazebo project. And I'll show you this rendering is a picture of a gazebo that I'll step back. I met with representatives from River East Neighborhood Association as well as staff from the convention center and hotel. As we had discussed, the site that a gazebo would go in Riverside Park will be the site behind the convention center. And so we had shared some different pictures with both the neighborhood association as well as the convention center staff. And I think we shared probably, I'm guessing about 9 or 10 different options. And the consensus, everybody in the group actually liked this gazebo. The one change, and I didn't have an updated design from the firm that's getting us the engineering, is the rail that goes around the bottom of the gazebo. That would be removed on ours. So it'd be open on all sides. Again, what the neighborhood association preferred, as well as staff at the convention center. So that's one rendering. I think I have another one. Let me find it for you. So this is really same rendering, just a computer design versus an actual picture. So once we got that unanimous consensus that this is the one that they wanted to go forward with, we'll be pursuing placing the order for this through the neighborhood funding that was approved by the council. So happy to get that project going. Obviously, due to material availability, unsure when we'll get that, but right now our hope is that once we get the engineering designs, that we may be able to get the concrete footings in the ground yet this fall, and then do the concrete base as well as the construction of it in early spring. So.
Great, just a quick question on that. Is there an option, or was there any discussion about potentially using a metal roof?
We did, and actually the majority of the pictures I shared with them were metal roofs. Ultimately, they really liked the look of the shingles. We talked about the maintenance and long-term, and their preference was shingle. I think what we will probably do, because when we order the gazebo, we're actually going to we won't order the shingle or the metal roof. We'll be able to purchase that locally with one of our local vendors and probably save some money. So I think what we'll be able to do is share some of the new products that are out there that are metal roofs that look like the asphalt shingle and see what their feeling is on that. But it was definitely a topic of discussion that we had, and really everybody liked the way the shingles looked. Again, we looked at it from the long-term maintenance side of things and tried to push that. So I think they're open to looking at it. And I think once we get to that point, we'll share some of the samples that we can get locally with the metal roof versus the shingles.
So they do have some of those products, right? Those architectural style, but they look like the smaller overlapped, but they're actually metal, right? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. And then my next update will be on the black bear exhibit at the zoo. And I'll pull up. So this is an overall site view basically of where the exhibit will go. Hopefully you can see my cursor moving. Here's the Eagle exhibit. Hopefully when we were out there touring earlier this summer, people remember the Eagle exhibit. So this large green space as part of our master plan is the area that called for a black bear exhibit. So what we're looking at doing is part of the exhibit will be, this is the black bear, and I'll give you kind of a side view. Then we also are designing this husbandry building to allow us to have the black bear, and it'll be separated from the fox that we recently acquired. So we're going to have a fox exhibit along with a black bear exhibit with a shared husbandry building here. This is Pratt Trail, so everybody knows where you're going. The lake is on the right side of the screen.
Ray, with that being across from the eagle exhibit, will that stress the eagle out having a predator across the way? I don't know. I'm just curious.
No, I don't see that as an issue. I think there's plenty of room. You can see this dotted line is actually the secondary containment fence here. So there's a fence inside, and the eagle is still a good distance away. So I don't see that as being an issue. And then this kind of gives you a side view as you're walking in, almost from the eagle exhibit, I guess. Concrete walkway coming in, see a bear. The exhibit, or this rendering, actually shows two. We are designing the exhibit that in the future, if we wanted to possibly add a second one. Here's the building we talked about. You can see the glass area. You can see a fox here. So people will be able to come into the front of or the side of the building, view the bear, view the fox. And then zoo staff, as I said, will be able to do their chores for each of those animals separately. So this is a project that we are working closely with some interested donors and the Oshkosh Community Foundation. We are starting to move towards a final design stage and potential bidding specs that our intent is to keep moving forward with this for possible construction in 2022. Any questions on that? Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. The last, second last is the Rainbow Memorial Park Trail. Ann touched on it a little bit earlier, but that project has moved along very well. I believe the final lift of asphalt went down late last week or late last week, I believe it was. So they have restoration to do on the site. So the trail is connected to basically the Oshkosh Avenue, Congress Avenue Bridge, going through Rainbow Memorial Park and connecting to Lakeshore Park. So you'll see within the next week or two here that the crews will be out there finalizing that restoration. So another trail connection. And back to the mayor's original comment, we'll have measurements on how many feet of trail that added, and we'll be able to include that as part of our information as well. One item that's not on here that I just wanted to make you aware of is as part of the budget process, we're going to be looking at our pool fees for the summer. As you can imagine, it was difficult for us to find seasonal staff in all of our areas in the parks this year. And we have shared with the city manager, finance, and HR the need for us to try to remain competitive with seasonal wages. They understand that and have told us to go ahead, assuming that we're going to have some increase in our seasonal wages. However, part of that is we're going to have to take a look at some potential fee increases at the pool. It's limited tax levy supported, and there's the revenue source is basically the tax levy and user fees, along with some smaller contributions. So just wanted to give you a heads up. We do have our department budget meeting with the Common Council next Monday. We'll let them know that there will be something coming. We'll bring it to this board for consideration. And then ultimately, when the fees are approved, along with all our other fees through the council, we'll have some fee increases included. We'll keep them nominal as we normally do, but I think looking at some past attendance, we can give you a general idea on what type of revenue that would support. So just giving you a heads up on that one.
Just a quick question on that then too, Ray. I had heard through the grapevine that some cities are, they run into the issue of, last year, fewer pools being available for lifeguard training and such like that. But along with the issue of being competitive, some municipalities are, offering like little bonuses, that can be like scholarships or lump sum type dollars in addition to like increasing the hourly wage. Is that something that you guys have talked about, or is it
Yeah,
feasible?
Yeah, we actually, working with the recreation department, because the rec department provides the staffing. So I asked them what their recommendation would be for their lifeguarding staff. They provided that to us, and we're also looking at all of our positions, seasonal maintenance and concession staff and so forth. But we do actually pay for their lifeguard training, which is a benefit to them. So it's a cost that the rec department tracks and then bills us back. So it is a benefit where the staff do not have to pay for their training. So that's a pretty big bonus for them at this point. So I am done, Amy. So I think we'll let Chad jump in.
Everyone hear me all right?
Good.
Good. Okay, I'm going to leave my camera off so it doesn't buffer as much on that end. So I apologize for that inconvenience. But a couple of projects just updated for us on, but if you haven't been out through South Park here as of recent, you'll see that the tennis pickleball courts are up in operation and gone through our final walkthrough. I think the one item we have left to put up is our handicap parking sign for our van area out front. Other than that, people have been out using those facilities, and it's nice to see, and hopefully they can have some time here before the snow flies to enjoy them a bit further into the fall. Very nice project. If you don't recall, it used to be a 3-court tennis complex that is now converted to a 2-court tennis and 4-court pickleball down there. So I encourage you to get out there and take a look at it and maybe play a game if you're interested. Over the next couple of weeks, over this past weekend, we had our final shelter reservation for October 10th, and we're going to start shutting down a lot of facilities in the parks. Obviously, I did leave Splash Pad at South Park open up a little bit longer this year into the fall, knowing the conditions were so nice. But restrooms, we're going to be shutting those down effective almost immediately. If you haven't heard, but we have had a surmount of vandalism in a lot of our facilities over the past few weeks and this summer, doing with lots of damages. We are tracking those where we do have cameras at locations to go for, and completing reports with the police department, with hopefully that they have luck finding the individuals that are causing these types of problems. But South Park has been our highest, our biggest area hit by this type of negativity by the public, and hopefully this won't affect a lot of our facilities going forward, but you will see us starting to shut those down here for the season, starting effective immediately on that. With this, that regards to vandalism, I encourage you, if you're out in the public, to report these items to the police department or our department as you see something occur out in our park system. It can be from tagging a sign to tagging light bollards along the river walk that we've observed, to restroom damage, tree damage, landscape bed damage. It occurs. It's been a trying year for us and our staff to stay up on these items to work from, and encourage the public to help us as they are out in our facilities and see some things happening. So looking forward to a good fall and other things taking place, and hopefully it'll be a good time for people to be out in the parks.
Chad, real quick, I'm sorry, I was having some connectivity issues. I had to get some more juice lined up. Where did you say the vandalism was again?
We're having the primary place is South Park. We've had a lot of issues with the restroom there. Shelter number 1. Even when we were doing the construction, the tennis court projects, we came across some things there. It's just been continual and more active over the past 3 to 4 weeks. We've also gone through on the river walk. We've had the tops of the light bollards along the walk itself written on. So we're trying to remove all those things. bridges underneath the Wisconsin Street have been tagged quite frequently. Boatworks restroom with the signs out front and issues inside the restrooms themselves. Again, I could go on the list. Red Arrow Park, that's been hit hard the past 2 weeks down here. And just to share some of the public or concerns that feel it's a part of some of the damage that's happening in the restrooms with hand dryers being broken off to soap dispensers, toilet paper dispensers, fires in the cans, baby changing stations being tore down, and things of that nature, and a lot of graffiti that comes through. There's a item out on TikTok that people have been using as a competition in different schools and public facilities that have been an issue for us as well. And hopefully we can knock this down here a little bit here in the near future, but closing the restrooms is going to hurt some of the good users out there in the parks during this fall, which is very disheartening from that perspective. So,
Very disappointing.
yes.
And is this maybe a question? I don't know if this is a good idea or good practice or not. So as much as we talked about earlier in the meeting, emphasizing and bragging on our annual report, is this something where, we need a one-page infographic that goes in the Herald about how much vandalism costs our parks? And I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if that's effective or not.
We, as Chad said, we work closely with the police department, and we asked for their opinions on some of that. Does it help us to put information out to the public? Sometimes it may hurt us where it's publicizing, more of the vandalism. So it's something we've done in the past, but we do run it past our police department, make sure that they're comfortable if we put something on social media, even just the after effects of one of the fires in the restroom, saying this cost us $5,000 to repair. If you know of anybody, help us out. So definitely something we try to do, Mayor, and work with the police department on their comfort level as well. But we do track all the costs associated with that. So it's definitely been mounting this year.
Do we have like a rough idea over a period of time, like what that total number is?
I think what we can do is have Chad pull together info and bring it back next meeting if that's helpful.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So sorry for that negative news, but let's hope for a good fall. I don't have anything further.
Thank you, Chad. All right, move on to Bill.
Okay, I'll be brief. I just kind of wanted to let everyone know that we're focusing on removing the stumps right now throughout the community. So every fall we go through and clean out all the stumps in the primarily the terraces where we've taken down trees and try to get everything ready for replanting. And so we've had a lot of stumps to work on. Right now we're currently still on the west side. That's kind of an area that we had our pruning cycle in last year, so consequently we removed a number of trees through that process, but also there was quite a few ash trees that we've been working on out there as well. So we've got quite a few stumps to go yet. We're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 removed at this point, but we're going to keep rolling. Hopefully winter will be delayed so that we can get that process moving. Sometimes we don't quite get through everything, but we're going to try to get the focus on the terraces first, and then we'll jump into the park stumps when we can. We're also working on continued removal of emerald ash borer affected trees. We're hopefully going to be working with some contractors to help us out. We're a small crew, so we've been inundated by a lot of removal needs. So we're hoping to get a couple contractors to help us with part of that process as well. Also, this week and next week, we'll be working on installing the memorial trees that we have on order. So the memorial tree program, as I mentioned in our last meeting, has been quite active. So we'll be primarily planting trees in South Park this week, and next week in Menominee Park. We've got a couple other ones in Fugelberg and West Haven Circle Parks that we'll be installing too. So we're trying to get all that work completed here yet this fall, and hopefully wrap up all the orders that we have on hand currently. That's it. If you got any questions, please let me know.
Jenny, I think you can feel free. I'll jump in for Amy.
You go.
Okay. That sounds good. I was just kind of waiting for her. So, like
I'm
everyone's
not a
kind of,
meeting time. My meeting only lasts till 7:30. I'm running out of time on our WebEx, I'm fearing.
oh, okay. So I'll go quick. So just kind of like everybody else said, this has been, it's been an interesting and trying year, but very excited that we were, able to do some things again. So most of the events we did, we saw pretty much half attendance of what we're used to. I mean, I think some people were very excited and very eager to get out there again after COVID and attend events, and others were not. So our Snooze at the Zoo event this year went great. It was fully sponsored by a grant through the Oshkosh Community Foundation, a Hiawatha Fund grant. We had about 54 campers, which is half of what we normally have. Still, had a great time. We're able to offer all of our programs inside the zoo, but had about half of the people that normally register. So we were happy to see the families down there, and always, a great event. Touch a Truck was really pretty normal. We saw over 2,000 people there. Had a lot of trucks, a lot of new people that we've never had before down there for some trucks, and they were just in love with the event. So just can't wait to come back for another year. Really enjoyed being down there. Totally an outdoor event, so people, I think, can keep their own space and keep their own distance and feel comfortable with that. So really, really good day. Kids really enjoyed it. I know that some of the local photographers in Oshkosh were down there, got some really cool pictures. So overall, this is a really, really good event, and one that people certainly love, and certainly love to see it back this year. So Tuesday night concerts, we struggled this year. I think part of it in 2019, so pre-COVID, we saw 7,000 people come through for that event. This year we were at about 3,000. So definitely about half the attendance. We couldn't offer what we normally do. It's usually a really family-friendly event. So parents will bring their kids down. They'll stay for a couple hours. They'll do the bounce houses. They'll do face painting. They'll do the food trucks, all this stuff. The family entertainment, which is sponsored by WPS. So there's so much to offer. This year we had the concerts. People were certainly excited to see the concerts back, but we couldn't do all those bounce houses things yet, and the face painting and a lot of the family aspect of that event. So our numbers were definitely low, but really encouraging that, people were excited to see them back. And we just, hopefully in 2022, we'll be able to be back to, having that stuff and offering those, the family aspects of that event too. So we can bring it back all together. The Menominee Park Zoo numbers, it was a great year for that. We have that new system, Mayor, that you were talking about. Super great system. You can see it on the computer every day, who's coming in, who's going out. It's really helpful. And so as a total from May 1st until September 26th, we saw 96,728. So super great for our little zoo. And with Zooloween coming right around the corner here this weekend, hopefully we'll bump that up to, just about 100,000 for 2021. So those are great numbers coming off of a really abnormal year. We did do a lot of great things in the zoo this year. We had a really phenomenal zoo education coordinator. She did a great job doing daily programs with the kids, scavenger hunts, enrichment for the animals, all different kinds of things. And then we also did Wildlife Wednesdays. So we had one of those every single Wednesday. And those are sponsored by the Zoological Society. So we had one every single Wednesday from that last Wednesday in May until the 18th or 26th of August. So we were really excited. We haven't in the past had them every Wednesday. So we were really excited about that this year being new. So yeah, a lot of stuff really quick, but any questions you can let me know.
We have time, so if you have questions,
Oh, okay. Sorry. That's okay. Any questions about that stuff?
My only question is, I don't even know if it's really zoo because it's more Menominee Park. Celebration of Lights, is that going to like interact, if it happens, when it happens, with zoo holiday features?
So Leanne's great. Leanne always works with us and around us. So we kind of talk about what our needs are for Zulaween coming up this weekend. So this Saturday, we'll be down there doing Zulaween, which is by far the biggest fundraiser for the zoo. And so we'll be able to report out next meeting on that. But so he works around us. He knows what we're doing this weekend. And as soon as we're done, they kind of start set up already for celebration.
Thank you.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, a great summer. Definitely, exciting to be back at things. But people have different feelings on things, and that's okay. So we got back into things, and in 2022, I think it'll be all the even better. So.
All right. Is there any other business tonight?
Yeah, I see you have a question.
No, I was just gonna say, my internet seems to not be working and I really need to get off the call. But if you're taking otherwise I'll move to close the meeting.
Just real quickly, the next meeting we'll assume is going to continue virtual. So thank you.
I'll second the motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll do a quick roll call. Davis,
Aye.
Dearth,
Aye.
Royal,
Aye.
Martin, Millette,
Aye.
Aye.
Mary.
I
All right, motion passed 6-0. Thank you, everyone.
You want some or no?
Thank you.
Have a good
Good
night.
meeting.
Very good.